There's a lot to talk about. I have been busy with many other things lately. I haven't really had time to make these videos, but I am now, and I hope you're all keeping well. I hope you're all being safe, and I hope you're making the most of life, because this is what this video today is going to be about, making the most of life. But there's a few things I want to talk about anyway, so this is probably, put the kettle on kind of video. So anyway, what's happening in Canada? Well, Castro Jr. has lost this one already. He can't win it. He can't possibly win this. And it seems insane that he's actually not, acquiescing to the demands of the truckers concerning the needlecraft, but also the truckers being very smart have widened it into a bigger thing. You can see how evil, and the evil is a real force in the world, things are when you have the Canadian Broadcasting Company having editorials on, well, what is freedom really? What is it really? And you can see the same interlopers working in Ottawa that we saw in Dublin during the protests. During the protests in Dublin, there was one outside the GPO on O'Connell Street, fairly big one too. This is at the height of this probably in 2020. And two women who were obviously middle class were wearing T-shirts with RT should hang their heads in shame. RT, the national broadcaster, and they instead of spelling THEIR, they spelled THERE. These were obviously plans. These were obviously set up to go there. This was obviously a plant, and I've seen them in Ottawa as well. They're holding up signs with a freedom DUM on it, DUMB, and this is they'll always send these things. See, their playbook is very limited. They can't really operate and function outside this particular playbook they have, because they can't create. And we'll talk about this as quite a deeper subject. Now, the situation in Ottawa is really terrorizing the globalists. It's absolutely terrorizing them. If there's one thing that a left-wing Marxist trade union leader, trade union representative, liberal hates, if there's one thing in the morning that when a liberal wakes up and hates to the core of their guts, it's a working class person who's making a living. If when a lefty wakes up in the morning with his copy, his annotated copy of Das Kapital by Engels on the bedside, if it's next to him or her, the first thing they think about in the morning is how much they hate the working class. Likewise, a trade union leader who probably doesn't even have a job, is probably paid by the union, and trade union rep, when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they do is they think of their hatred of the working class people. And the reason for this is the trade union movement has moved into the middle class, and particularly bureaucrats and civil servants. In Ireland, the trade union movement exclusively represents, when I say exclusively, I mean exclusively like a gentleman's club, a sports club, a private golf or tennis club, exclusively represents the upper middle class through the public sector unions, particularly the civil servants. And this was brought home back in 2008 when the economy here collapsed and there was a worry about a run on the banks. And the head of the unions, who was also on the Bank of Ireland, or no, Central Bank Board, David Begg, said that the army must be posted at banks to machine gun. Well, he didn't say machine gun, but that's what would happen. To machine gun any citizens who wanted to do a run on the banks and take their cash out. Now, the reason for this was not because he was trying to stabilize the economy. The primary aspect of his thing was to make sure that all the perks that the civil servants enjoy through their trade union representatives were not damaged in any way. This is why the primary function of the recovery of this country from 2008 on was the protection of the trade unions. The trade unions in this country have a hatred of the working class, just like they have a hatred of the working class in Canada and every other where else. Trade unions have been taken up exclusively a public sector middle class thing, an upper middle class. They're like organised charities. They're basically at the top is just nothing but psychopaths. Now, and they're incredibly selfish. So this is why you will have trade unions in Ottawa attacking the truck drivers. Why? Because the truck driver is one of the few jobs that a working class person, and this is why it really appeals to immigrants. If they can take, there's a huge demand for truck drivers because it's a very difficult job. People have no idea how difficult the truck driver's job is, especially in somewhere like Canada or United States or on mainland Europe. You're talking about incredibly long distances, incredibly bad, difficult lives, if you have a family and stuff like that. But the money's all right when you're starting out. And it's good, if you have a truck driver's license, you've got a basically guaranteed employment. Basically guaranteed employment. And it's a great way for guys and women who don't have, like, say, a third level education to do all right for themselves. And they've done all right during the lockdown because the supermarkets, the real heroes, the people who work in supermarkets, were kept open. And they had to deliver all this stuff. During this period, they woke up and they realized the power they had as an organization. And because they're the Canadian truck drivers, with the help of the American ones too, are doing this in Ottawa without the sanction of the trade unions, has made them the enemy of the trade unions. Because this is the first time in history that I can actually think of a working class revolt that didn't involve Marxism at some level. And Marxism was basically created by somebody who never worked a day in his life, an idle rich fucker, just like all the ones in Antifa and everything like that. So it's very interesting for that aspect alone. Also, a lot of these truckers are also private business people, because it's one of the jobs an immigrant or a working class person can elevate themselves up. They work the long hours. Eventually, they may be able to get a loan from the bank to buy their own rig. And then the world's their oyster. They can actually subcontract out to big shipping agencies and so on and do really well for themselves. Now, this is something that the establishment absolutely hate. They absolutely hate. Because the people who grow up, if you went to an Irish or a British trade union meeting, chances are they'll be waving not in British flags or Irish flags, but Palestinian flags and rainbow flags. This movement has come up organically from the true grassroots of Canadian society, and that's why they're waving the maple leaf flag, the flag of Canada. Because there's one thing the globalists hate next to working class people, it's people who love their country, have a genuine love of their country. They hate that. They despise it, because they know that at some level there's a great beauty in that. There's a great beauty, just like because we have a beautiful tribe, we know that there's a beauty in that. Okay, there's a special beauty in that we as the tribe have. But we're also members of countries, whether you're English, Irish, American, Canadian, New Zealander, Australian, South African, doesn't matter, Polish, Nigerian, whatever. You have a special affinity to your homeland. And it doesn't, and you see, the lefty is incapable of understanding that, the lefty is incapable of understanding that you can love your country without hating another country. You can love your country and just as much love another country, So like a Canadian person can love Canada and love Ireland. An Irish person can love Ireland and love Italy. An Italian person can love Italy and love Germany. And it's just how we are. That's not, they try to conflate love of one's land with hatred of all other lands, which is absolutely not true. Now, this is an Abrahamic thing. If you look at history before Abrahamism, there's you show me where there's religious wars. Show me where there are religious wars. Yes, there's wars over territory. Yes, there's wars over, kingships and bloodlines and things like that. Yes, there's war over resources. There's absolutely no wars you can find over religion. When Alexander the Great went into the Hindu Kush, he didn't say, we classical pagans are here to destroy the Hindu Vedic infidels. It was just purely a battle of resources and conquest. And religion would never have entered into it. A Celtic pagan has no issue with a Nordic pagan. A Nordic pagan has no issue with a classical Hellenic pagan. A Hellenic pagan has no issue with Native American. Native American has no issue spiritually with a Germanic pagan. A Germanic pagan has no issue spiritually with a Dogon in West Africa. and on and on and on and on and on. Yet the Abrahamics all slaughter, not only slaughter us, but slaughter each other in the name of their demon Jehovah. And the same, that demon has, in its secular form, is what you see happening in Ottawa. Now, these people, it hates nationalism. Well, I say national, love of country. That's a better term. It hates love of one's country. Hates it. Just like it hates one's love of nature. And so Trudeau cannot win. In fact, he's already lost because he's in violation of natural law. Natural law is when you... Let me tell you what the ultimate expression of natural law is genuine conviction. So this is why, rather than programming or brainwashing, this is why you will never... No invading army will ever fully defeat the people of the land they've invaded. Because the people... You look at, say, here's a good example is Turkey and Greece, right? The Ottoman Turks harassed and butchered and imprisoned and treated the Greeks terribly for hundreds of centuries, right? The Ottoman Turks were there, brainwashed by both their imperialist Ottoman caliphate objectives and also their religion. The Greeks were fighting for their homeland. One side, the Greeks had conviction. The Ottomans had objectives. Conviction wins every time. Justin Trudeau in Canada does not have conviction. He is serving his globalist masters. Those truck drivers, every single one of them have conviction. So therefore, conviction is the most fundamental thing of natural law. It's when you follow your gut instinct, your noetic insights, your intuition, your daemon. And it tells you, no, I'm not putting up with this. And it can be from something as simple as walking out of a relationship to taking on your government. Trudeau has the conviction of the globalists. And I can assure you that they're actually panicking and they're telling him under no circumstances should this strike be broken, should this protest be broken, or allowed to go ahead. It must be broken. It must be broken because it's now sending a crescendo. It's cascading into other societies. The backbone of the Canadian working class is now finding itself in other ways. Now, one of the things you do when you've defeated a brainwashed or dogmatic or an orthodox enemy is you implement measures in order to stop them from ever returning or being comfortable there in that situation ever again. I'll give you an example. Portugal was under the Ottomans, under the Moorish Caliphate for something like 900 years. And like the Spanish and the Portuguese, they were treated horrifically by the Moors. That's all a myth about, the Moorish were a wonderful, elegant, classy people who had this beautiful society. No, it was a beautiful society if you were a Moor. It wasn't if you happened to be a Christian living there. Crucifixions and not kidnapping, just taking women as prostitutes was common. Christians were treated horrifically under the Iberian Caliphate, the Moorish Caliphate in Iberia. Now, when the Portuguese threw them out, they did something beautiful. They made pork their national dish. Fucking clever. So you go into any restaurant in Portugal today, you can literally, pork is in everything. Right down to using pork fat to cook. Clever. Okay? And as a result, they don't have the problems with mullahs like we do in Ireland, writing editorials in the Irish Times teaching Irish men how to treat their women properly. A Muslim, yeah, that's what we're up against. Okay, so we have to create a situation whereby now that we have got past the scamdemic in many countries, past the needlecraft, they shoot themselves in the foot because a lot of people, it's now generally assumed unless you're mentally ill or have a no, have a third level degree, a university degree, or mental illness is the same thing. Unless you're mentally ill or have a university degree, it's pretty obvious that the needlecraft was a complete failure. Okay, and it was the proliferation of herd immunity via the Omicron variant that brought us back to where we were. Okay, so that's now known to people. So this whole war against humanity, against the immune system that was brought about by a century or so of needlecraft, is basically a difficult one for them to win now, because people like me who didn't have a problem with any of that stuff said looked at the science and didn't listen to Dolly Parton singing, and saw this and said, no fucking way, no way, no fucking hope in hell. And that was, there's millions like me. All you guys are like that out there, okay? And that's because we have the ability to see things one at a time, rather than in an orthodoxy brainwashed way, okay? That's like saying, me saying, all Irish people are wonderful. Loads of Irish people are cunts. That's just how it is, like in any country. I'm fine with that. But it doesn't mean that the society as a whole are cunts. A lot of them are. That's how it is. That's okay. And just like you can love your country without hating another country and other people in it. See, but the Abrahamic lefty, the Abrahamic Marxist mind, hive mind, can't think that way. It's all or nothing, orthodoxy or, Caesar or nothing. And this thing that's happening in Canada is definitely a retreat. They're looking for it. This is a slash and burn retreat. When an army is defeated, but it still has enough troops to retreat back, it will kill all the farm animals. It will burn the crops and destroy the fields. And this is exactly what the globalists are doing after this. There's now calls to investigate and arrest Jacinta Ardern because of her connections with China. She is, if there's one politician on earth that's absolutely a Chinese spy, an agent, it's Jacinta Ardern in New Zealand. She is trying everything to get the Chinese Communist Party actively involved in Asian politics, even in groups that are very much pro-democracy. She is a fucking nut job. If she's a nut job, she's an out-and-out Communist Party spy. And people in New Zealand really need to wake up what you're dealing with there. You have countries like Australia who are very, very antagonistic towards China, especially now. And you have situations where countries all over Asia who've moved towards democracy are saying, no way should the Chinese be allowed in. We've struggled very badly to get to the state, and they're still acting like they're still a communist dictatorship. No way should they be in the outside trade groups. Who's the one who's saying, let them in, they're wonderful? Jacinta Ardern. Who's the country that had the worst lockdown in the world? The most dogmatic lunacy. And if you look at her, she looks less human every day. New Zealand. She's using New Zealand as a private, hormonal replacement treatment caliphate. That's what she is. To wage war against on behalf of the Chinese. It's absolutely disgusting. Thank God she's only the Prime Minister of New Zealand. God help us if she was the President of United States or even the Prime Minister of the UK. God help us. It's only New Zealand that she actually took over. Name another New Zealand politician in history that you name one other off the top of your head. Name one other New Zealand politician in history that you know of. I don't know of any. You don't. Why do you know of her? Two reasons. Reasons for it. The Chinese communists are pushing her. It's as simple as that. They're pushing her as their golden girl. Why? Because she's working for them. It's as simple as that. That's the world you live in. The same thing with baby Castro in Canada. There is a funny connection between the Chinese communists and the globalists that's hard to put your finger on, but it's there nonetheless. See, the globalists look at China and they say, that's what we want. That we want the credit system, we want the social credit system, we want people living like slaves. You know, producing technology, high-end technology for shit wages. That's what we want. Where they have no rights, no nothing. They own nothing and are happy, except the super rich. And that's what the whole last 2 years were all about. The narrow window of opportunity, as Klaus Schwab called it. The narrow window of opportunity to implement their great reset, to build back better. Building back better is what? You're seeing, what you're seeing being done, the thuggish mentality of baby Castro in Ottawa is their build back better. That's what it is. Now, the last few days I've been writing articles to my Substack page, and I can no longer hold back that we're dealing with something that isn't human behind the curtain. Something, I mean, I'm not going to say it's an actual entity or being. I'll use metaphors such as jinn and demons and, you know, whatever. But they're not, or it could even just be a manifestation of a predatory form of consciousness among humans. But it's there nonetheless. It's there nonetheless, okay? And that's how I feel more and more every day. When I look at Jacinta Ardern, I don't see a human being. I just don't. When I look at so many of them, I don't see human beings. Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Fauci, a lot of them. I don't see a human being. And my litmus test for everybody is, would I go and have a pint with them in the pub? That's a beautiful litmus test. That's the ultimate. Take my word for it. Take this to the bank, okay? If you want to have a situation, right, where you want to know, should you deal with this person or not, say to yourself, are they the kind of person I would go to the pub and have a pint with? It's just a beautiful thing. It's simple, but it's beautiful. The reason why you're saying no, you'll say, no, I wouldn't go for the pub for a pint with, like, Tony Blair, is your soul is saying, get the fuck out of here. That's what that's saying. And our souls right now are saying, get the fuck out of this, build back better. That's what they're saying. Those of us in the tribe and people like us, that's what we think. We'll get the fuck out of here. What they're offering. Now, a major part of how this supernatural thing, if you're a Christian, you can call them anything you want, devils, I don't care. If you're a Muslim, you can call them jinn. I like the idea of the digital jinn because the word rhymes together and it sounds good. It also feels right. You know, we have the chronsonic energies at the moment rising very strongly, and that's because it's backed into a corner. It's all or nothing. Now, the digital jinn idea was this concept I developed about 8 or 9 years ago, that parts of the internet somehow have become sentient, or malevolent levels of consciousness have entered into the World Wide Web or the internet as digital entities, jinns, demons, whatever. And they are infecting the human race at the conscious level by beckoning us deeper into the domain of the digital jinn. Now, it's not even a new thing, but they want to destroy everything you love about your life in order to make the artificial reality, the fake digital universe, more appealing. They've been doing this for a while. Now, how I first figured this out was, about 10, 11 years ago, there was this ridiculous thing called the Venus Project. It came out of a film called Zeitgeist. And it was developed by some guy called Fresco with the blessing of the Dutch royal family. And basically, you were to give up this life and go live in a sustainable pod. Mostly live in floating cities on the coast. And the inland was to be turned rewilded and you were to be controlled by a central computer which ran your life in every way. And food was to be grown in artificial environments with nutrients and so on added. So basically, you were to be freed by being put on a kind of a life support. And if you didn't do as the life support said, well, you didn't live. Okay. Now, when this Venus Project thing took off, I paid very careful attention to who were the ones who it was definitely a cult to, who were the ones who were the most led into it, and it was nearly always American white bread suburbanites, young people who grew up in cookie cutter suburbs of the United States and had a deep dissatisfaction with life. Now, you could not show, these people knew nothing else other than the Quickie Mart, the 7-Eleven, the bland streets, the bland neighborhoods, the strip malls and shopping malls, all the same stores. And as a result, had a sense of lacking in their lives, a sense that this wasn't the right way to live. Where someone who grew up in an old European city or grew up in the countryside in America was aware of the richness of life. These beautiful old crumbling European cities are magical places. So people who grew up in those places didn't have any desire to go to you had shops at the end of the street growing vegetables or probably growing on the rooftop nearby. This kind of thing. So people who grew up in old European cities and had looked at the Venus Project and that's horrible. Likewise, people that grew up in North America in the countryside and were exposed to nature looked at that and said, I wouldn't go there. It was a certain type. And how they had been brought into the Venus Project thinking was because they were given a shit life. A shit, bland, empty, cold, soulless life in cookie cutter suburbia. And they were desperate for anything to liberate them from that. And this is what they're doing on a global level. They're making life as crap as possible. They're silencing the songs in our heart. This is their technique. They want you to get up in the morning and hate your life and your existence from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you close them. They want you to blame other people and other races and other groups. This is why the thing with the woke thing. The woke thing we have to be very careful with because it's a trap on lots of levels, okay? Wokeness is absurd. It's stupid, okay? But you don't counteract wokeness by picking on black people who get jobs out of it or minorities or anyone else, okay? They're not the ones causing woke. The ones causing woke are in every case rich white people, okay? Well-off white people. They're the target. But the best way to take woke down is to point out the absurdities of it. The absolute absurdity of woke, okay? That's the way of taking it down. Not picking on people who happen to get jobs because of it, because of their skin color. So, for instance, this new Lord of the Rings thing that's coming out, right? And it's a trap. You can see it's a trap. They have deliberately released pictures of, like, the black dwarves and black people playing elves and stuff like that in order to trigger the racists, okay? And I've seen they focus on the skin color. A black, yeah, it's absurd. We know they're all English, okay? That's the whole point of it. Albion and all that stuff. But they do it in such a way that they want you to deliberately pick on the black actor. Well, it's not the black actor's fault. It's the fault of the producers and the executive producers and the people at Amazon. It's their fault, okay? That's where the blame lies, not of the actor who's glad to get a job. So this is where you're making a mistake. They put that out there deliberately for you to concentrate on the race of the actors and stuff like that. When in reality, here's how I looked at the trailer for the Lord of the Rings TV series. It looked like shite. Did you see? Like when you read Tolkien, the Silmarillion, or any of them, the Ring Cycle, any of them, even The Hobbit, which is just basically a kid's book, you get this feeling of a kind of a musty woodland, pipe smoke, wood smoke world. You know, you don't get this big fluffy Disneyland vibe about it, okay? And as magnificent and wonderful as Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy movies are, the only place they fell down is New Zealand doesn't feel like Middle Earth. It should have been filmed in either Britain or Ireland, or both, possibly. They should have been filmed here or in Britain. They have that feel of Middle Earth, that musty, damp, moss-covered stones, moss upon stones, pipe smoke, sylvan feel. It doesn't have that feel. So I was looking at the trailer for the new thing, and it looks awful. They showed like the views of the urban areas, the cities. They look like something from the Little Mermaid. They're fluffy and bright and Disney. They completely missed the point of what Middle Earth feels like for all the races, and they created as some kind of, like, I don't know, fucking Elrond's fucking rainbow flag, you know, Venus project put back into the second age, you know? Awful. Just it looks awful. And the way they've actually made Gladriel a fucking warrior is ridiculous. If she's a spiritual being, she's closer to something like the Virgin Mary. What if they turned her into, what was the name of those films? You know, Tomb Raider. Laura Croft in Tomb Raider. They turned her into that. This is where that's to me is more absurd than anything to do with black elves and black, hobbits. That to me is much more absurd, because that shows their lack of a soul. And this is why we won, and we'll always keep on winning. It's because we have souls. And the ones that don't have souls are trying to drag us into their great resets, their build back betters, their 3D AI universe. Because they're making this, they notice something about us, that we love nature. And we love to see a sunset. We love to see the sea. They're taking that all away from us to make this reality as shit as possible and make the AI world more appealing. That's what this is, their agenda now. And when you see those truckers in Canada, what you see is something that the digital Jinn could not manifest. And also what kills them is, and this is amazing when you think about it, and you should take this as a real compliment as a human being. They created the greatest propaganda machine in history in the last 2 years. I mean, they were actually deciding what was truth and what was not true. They're fact checkers and they're Snopes and all the fake news and all this stuff. And yet, we still beat them through memes. Look, if I die tomorrow, I want this on my tombstone because it's true. Memes and shit magic, memes and shit posting are the street magic of the masses. They are. That's our. If the cunning men were around today, they'd be using memes and shit posting. Because look, it works. We defeated $1 trillion propaganda operation in the last 2 years with it. The power of that is phenomenal, because they can't do it. This is why they killed the witches in the past. When you say a perfectly innocuous thing about the Rona or the needlecraft on Facebook, and it pops up with the warning, about, the little warning they give you about whatever, on all the on those, what that is the same thing as when they burned witches in the past. They burned witches in the past because they couldn't beat the folk magic. That's why they killed the pagans as well. They couldn't beat the folk magic, and they'll kill us too if they can get away with it. In fact, you could argue that the last 2 years was a method to kill us all, to try and get us, especially when they started talking mandatory and things like that. So the street magic, our street sorcery, is memes and shit posting. You're closer to God posting a meme than you'll ever be on your knees in church. You'll be closer to your spiritual center shit posting on Facebook than you'll ever be in Sedona with a magic crystal on your bum. You can take that to the bank. This is what real magic and real spirituality is. It's not about being pious or devoted or having faith. It's about taking your conviction as an arrow, putting it into that bow and firing at those motherfuckers and hitting them every time with them. And when we miss them, there's enough of us firing our bows, memes, shit posting, jokes, bam, bam, bam. We're like the English archers at Agincourt. There's so fucking many arrows coming down from the sky that the French knights cavalry didn't have a chance. That's what we're like. You remember that the power that we had in that, okay? This is why the digital djinn wants to take over our minds, and because the one thing you will always know from history is that tyrants and oppressors cannot deal with the humour that we produce. The humour from within us is black, dark, sardonic. It comes to the fore and it allows us to fight back. When you just think back to when you were at the most oppressive in the last couple of years. I know some of you still are locked up. What gave you hope? Was it someone going to court? Was it marches? Was it protests? Was it someone on our side, some doctor or scientist saying, oh, they've got it all wrong? No. In your darkest moment, what gave you hope was a meme that may have had Fauci, Bill Gates, or whoever on it, that you broke your bollocks laughing at because it was so funny. Because that laugh came from the depths of your soul. And believe me, my friends, that's the only fucking place that matters. Sanguine gnosis. Love you.